Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in to the KFit Show. My name is Kalan Anglos. I am the host, and I am an exercise physiology and sports performance expert. I help train as well as educate athletes and individuals on the science behind performing better and living a healthier lifestyle. So that's what I want to do, and that's what the KFit Show is all about. Today's episode, we are looking at how you can stay accountable and how you can use goals to help keep yourself accountable. We're talking goals and accountability here on the KFit Show. Before we get into it, I just want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Graphic FX. Graphic FX in Victoria, British Columbia is the go-to digital and print place to go if you want logos, if you want any digital design, anything that happens to do with digital. Go to Graphic FX. They can help you out. Their graphic designers are the best around, and I highly recommend them. Tell them KFit sent you, and go to Graphic FX in Victoria, BC. This is the KFit Show. Let's get started.
Ryan Nav transition is complete.
Hello, my name is Kalan Anglos, and I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Sounds pretty good, huh?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
And this is the KFit Show.
5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
We are back in studio in the KFit Show studio. My name is Kalan Anglos, if you didn't already catch that. Thanks again, guys, for tuning into this episode. I really appreciate you guys listening in and tuning in. I had a busy week, busy couple weeks. I was at the Canada Open Championships. Anybody who was over there and talked to me and said hello, got my picture, that was awesome. Thank you for hanging out, and thanks for talking. And it was a successful tournament for everybody, and the Canada Open was awesome. Thank you very much for everybody who did that. Going forward here for myself, I got some pretty good news yesterday from the boxing world, and it looks like my next kind of venture into the fitness testing of combat sport athletes is going to be in boxing. Hopefully, we're looking at it, and I can't announce anything yet, but it looks like the KFit conditioning program will be going to boxing, so that's exciting for sure. Today's episode we're talking about goals and accountability. I think one of the most important things for people who train for sport performance or train to get healthier, whatever your goal is, you need to have something to keep you accountable, right? I think that's why people go to trainers or people go to coaches is so they have somebody who can not only track the results but also keep them accountable to where they need to be. But one of the big things about doing that is also setting goals. Now, you guys know, you've heard me say it before, I am huge on goals. I think goals are the most important thing for any periodization program for any athlete or individual, because again, it just sets those landmarks of where you want to be. And even if you set a goal, shoot, what do they say? Shoot for the stars and reach the moon or whatever, or reach for the moon and reach Pluto, whatever it is. Goal setting is super important because it gives you something to shoot for. And even if you don't quite make it, you readjust your program, readjust your training, and you go right back at it. So I'm really big on goal setting, and I want to talk a little bit today about SMART goals and what that means. So the acronym SMART, S-M-A-R-T, is used in the literature as one of the more concrete ways to set goals, if that makes sense. Like it's a structure to set goals, but then also to make them so that they're attainable and they're not something that you can't get to. So it's goal setting, but it's kind of an evidence-based approach to goal setting. So I want to talk about that. And again, the reason why I like this is because it applies to everybody. It applies to the training athlete for the sport. Everybody's got different goals, but the goal setting process is very much similar, okay? So again, let's just talk a little bit about how this would work in a periodization program. So we've talked about before, a preseason, in-season, transition periods, everything in a periodization program, you're going to have little goals throughout them. So, you might have something that's halfway through the season. You might have something at the end of the season. Whatever it is, it might come up at different times. But again, the structure is the same. And also these SMART goals can actually be used for really anything in life. Like I use SMART goals for just where I want to be academically, or where I want to be in my career and kind of my life and how I'm going forward. I use these SMART goals to keep me accountable, right? Because that's what it's all about. So let's just break it down a little bit about what a SMART goal is. Okay, so SMART goals, again, this isn't a spelling bee, but SMART, SMART goals. It's an acronym, okay? So we're going to break it down. The S stands for simple, the M stands for measurable, A, attainable, R is realistic, and T is time constraint, as in within a time constraint, within a time period. So we're going to break that down and talk a little bit about what each of those mean, how you can go about doing it, and how you can really set goals to reach to reach them, I guess. Set goals to reach your goals, crush your goals, and keep on going. So SMART goals. Simple is the first step, okay? It has to be simple. You can't set a goal that is way out there that you'll never be able to attain. Like, for example, one of my goals right now is to be able to row in under 20 minutes 5 kilometers. So row 5 kilometers on a rowing ergometer at a set drag factor for under 20 minutes. And I've just about made it there, so my goals are coming close, but I haven't quite made it yet. But if I was to make something like, I want to row 5 kilometers with a pace of 2 minutes per 500 meters, and I want my stroke to be every time at about 36 milliseconds per stroke, and I that's not simple. There's too much there, too much going on. You want to make sure it's a simple goal. Okay, so something like, I want to be able to lift this much weight in whatever exercise. I want to be able to do this fitness test, run the 1.5 mile run in under 10 minutes. There's a great goal for anybody who's training for any type of performance, really. Any type of simple goal. Make it simple, make it easy to remember, and go from there. M, measurable. Okay, it has to be measurable. For example, if you can't measure something, it doesn't mean anything, right? That's what I always kind of say. So you need to be able to measure this type of goal. So this is where the assessment process for a coach is so important, and not just the assessment process, but also the testing process, right? On elite level sports and in elite level athletes, we do fitness testing before the season, preseason, sometimes in the middle of season as well, and then again at the end of season, because we are measuring each of their parameters, whatever it is that we've determined is important for success in that sport. And the same thing goes for anybody, right? You need to be able to measure it. So there's lots of different ways to measure stuff in the fitness world. I'm big on using something that is already validated. I think that's important. Use a valid test for whatever you're trying to measure. So if it's upper body strength you're worried about, or power, which again is those explosive movements, or if you're worried about your aerobic performance, you want a high VO2 max, whatever it is, you want to make sure that you can measure it. So use a test that's already been developed, or if not, like what we did is we kind of created our own test, which is kind of cool, but then we used a study. We correlated the results of this test that we made with the gold standard test in anaerobic capacity. I don't want to get too carried away. So we just ran a study to show that, yes, this is a valid measure of, in this case, anaerobic capacity. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that study later on. But yeah, we just, had something that we put together and we validate it. So make sure you use a valid test or validate it through scientific research, right? Using the scientific method. To me, that's one of the best ways to validate a certain measure. So make sure it's simple, your goal. Make sure it's measurable. Make sure you can actually measure it in some kind of way, whatever it is. Time, reps, sets, performance, right? A measurable performance. You could say, I want to place in the top 3 at provincials this year. Perfect. Did you make it, right? So that's a measurable goal. Okay. Moving on. A, attainable. So this is kind of going along with the next one. The next two are kind of similar. A and R are attainable and realistic, but there is a difference between the two. Attainable means that you are capable of making it there. Okay, so attainable means that it's something that you can actually get to, where it's different from realistic, because realistic is something that is in your realm, right? You want to, if you're a baseball player or you're a basketball player, you're not going to set a goal, to be the best basketball player if you're a baseball player, right? Or something like that. That's kind of a bad example. But what I'm trying to say is realistic is something that's in your world. So if you're going to the gym, you're trying to get bigger, a realistic goal would be to gain an inch in your arms or whatever it is the hell you're trying to attain. And again, attainable is just something that you can almost see, right? That you can kind of reach out and you can get. So it has to be attainable and it has to be realistic, okay? So again, S, simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and the last one, which is super important, is T, and that's time constraint, okay? Time constraint, within a time constraint. So what you need to do when you set your goals is you need to have a time structure on it. So you need to say, in 6 months, I'm going to place on the podium at provincials. Whatever. In 8 weeks, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. In whatever it is, it's got to be in a set period of time, because it's far too easy to just be like, well, one day I want to be able to bench press 400 pounds. It's like, okay, well, if you actually set a time constraint on that, you're going to get to your goals a lot faster, because it's almost like a landmark. It's like, okay, 6 weeks from now, I need to be able to bench 300 pounds. Okay, can't quite bench there. 6 weeks from now, I want to be able to bench 310. All right, 6 weeks, bench 310, going forward, right? It gives you those landmarks to reach your bigger goal. So now we're talking kind of, mesocycles, microcycles, and that kind of thing. But you need to set your goals within a time constraint. So whatever it is, work towards a time-constrained goal. I think that's really important, okay? So that's a SMART goal. Simple, easy to remember, measurable, attainable and realistic, as well as within a time constraint. Now, this is usually something, SMART goals is usually something that's done early in a periodization plan. We're talking mostly about elite athletes or people that really want to perform in the gym and see results, because that's what we're all about, right? Like, we want to see the results. There's nothing worse for a strength and conditioning coach or a trainer or any other coach of any time, working with somebody who just doesn't care about improving or isn't motivated really to improve. And I think that's what makes these SMART goals so important, is that they make you want to improve, right? You want to reach their goals. I love working with people who really want to reach their goals, because it just makes our job as coaches easier, and strength and conditioning coaches and trainers and all that kind of stuff, and fitness experts. It makes our job easier if you're motivated. So setting SMART goals is going to help you do that. But also, some SMART goals are long, macro. We're talking macro cycle goals. So we're, next year, or, if we're talking Olympics, 4 years from now, I want to be at the Olympics, or I want to place at the Olympics. Okay, that's great. That's within a time constraint, yes, but let's have little, smaller micro and mesocycle goals that we can use to help kind of reach that. So little goals within a periodization program to a bigger goal, right? Because that's really what we're talking about here. But you need those little goals, and you need somebody to keep you accountable, right? Like, this is really where a year-long training plan comes in handy, is having something over a year, over a quadrennial, 4 years, a training plan with the goals set out before. I can't really stress that out enough, that you need to have these goals set out previously, and it's going to help you stay attainable. But work with somebody, work with your coaches, work with your strength and conditioning coach, work with somebody who is familiar with programming, basically, and helping you stay accountable, because it's really tough to do it on your own. I find, when I was an elite athlete, I found it's really hard to stay attainable to your goals when you don't have anybody to rely on, or don't have anybody, you're trying to do it all on yourself. It's kind of romantic, I guess, to be able to train yourself and get to podium. Oh yeah, look at this, I did this all. But my biggest issue when I was an elite athlete was I didn't have a lot of training partners where I was living, or at least training partners that, were at the level that I was at for the most part. So it was hard for me to do it. I had to travel elsewhere to find those people. And, it was really hard on a day-to-day basis to find the time, or not, I shouldn't say find the time, to find the reason, basically, to go train when there's nobody there to keep you accountable, pardon me. It's so easy to just let this slip, especially when it comes to training, because, let's be honest, Sometimes we don't want to train, right? Sometimes you don't want to go to the gym. Sometimes you don't want to go for that run. I get it. It sucks sometimes. You really have to drag your ass to get there, but you need somebody to keep you attainable. So have somebody. Absolutely. Pick somebody right now. If you don't know, if you don't have anybody that keeps you attainable right now, find somebody. Say, hey, you're going to be my training partner. We're going to go to the gym every 3 days. Hey, you're my coach. You're my trainer. Let's go. You need to keep me attainable. This is what I need to do. And I think this is also important where you need to talk to your coach and talk to your partners or whatever about what your goals are. It's great if you have these goals in mind that you want to get to, but if you don't put them out there, they're just stuck inside. You really got to tell people. The sooner you tell people, the sooner you're going to take the next step to reach those goals. And again, this really applies to everything, right? I mean, I'm talking mostly athletics and sports performance here because that's what we do on the KFit Show, but this applies to almost anything in life, really, right? So tell people. And a trick that I find that, not a trick, but a strategy I find that really helps is write things down. Actually, physically write things down on a piece of paper. I truly believe that there's something in the process of writing things down, writing your thoughts down on paper that makes them more concrete because, you could have all these thoughts swirling around in your head about what's going on and where you want to be and you got to do this, you got to do that. But when you actually write something down on a piece of paper and have a concrete piece of thing, it just becomes a physical entity. Like it's right there. You can look at it. My goal is to reach podium or whatever. You can see it right there on the piece of paper. And then after you write it down, I suggest putting it in a place where you can see it every single day on the fridge, on the bathroom, above the shitter, whatever it is. Wherever you are going to be every day, I want you to be able to see this goal every single day so that it's drilled in your mind. Yes, that is what I need to go to. On top of that, what I also like to do when I was training is put, I don't think it's any surprise that I'm pretty big on motivational quotes and motivational things. So if that works for you, fill your boots. Cover your room, cover your house in those motivational things. Because if we're training for elite performance or we're training for a goal that we need to get to, it needs to be at the top of your mind. Let's be honest, right? It needs to be there. So there's just a couple tricks to keep yourself accountable and to setting goals that are going to help you perform and are going to help you improve. Okay, so I suggest using SMART goals. They're lots of different research on them. So if you can't remember some of the things I said, if you weren't taking notes, you should know by now. If you're listening to the KFit Show, take some notes. Come on. We got some exciting guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, so get in the habit of taking notes or whatever it is. But it's gone. I don't even know what I was talking about. Get some SMART goals, do some SMART goals, set some SMART goals, and crush some SMART goals by staying accountable with somebody. Boom. There it is. That's SMART goals and accountability. All right. Thank you for tuning into that. But before we get going here on the KFit Show, I want to talk about some exciting stuff that's coming up in my world. I realize, I guess, now that, if you're listening to this, you probably know who I am. You might be a little interested about what's going on in my world. So I just want to fill you guys in real quick. And again, thanks to everybody who's reached out to me. And, I couldn't believe at the Canada Open when people came up to me that I didn't even know, said, hey, KFit, hey, KFit's going good. Hey, KFit conditioning, awesome. You guys are doing great, or you're doing great. Yeah, well, I appreciate it, guys. I really do. So, yeah, what I realized, though, is that people are at least a little interested in what I'm doing. So, every now and again I might talk a little bit about what's going on in my life and not personally, but, academically and my research and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that this is all about. So I just want to fill you guys in on a couple of things, a couple of exciting things that have come my way. So most of you probably already know my master's thesis research, which is completed. I've got my master's degree. It was on establishing a standardized fitness test battery for combat sport athletes. That was kind of the whole overlying subject. What I did was, for my master's thesis, was I looked at karate athletes specifically, and we did a physical demands analysis of karate. We looked at the heart rate data. We looked at movement data, accelerometer data, all this different data that we could find and gather together to use that data to then put a fitness test battery together that measures karate physiological things that are important for karate. So what we're doing now, and what's really exciting, is it looks like boxing, and Boxing Canada is on board to do a very similar thing with boxing athletes, which is super exciting for me because I train a lot of boxing athletes. I love working with boxing athletes, so it looks like boxing, the KFit test battery for combat sport athletes is going to be going to boxing athletes next. So I'm really excited about that. I'm going to keep you guys posted on that shortly. I'm kind of in conversations right now with Boxing Canada and the head coach of Boxing BC. So hopefully something comes up with that. But either way, we got judo that's coming on board as well. We're looking at all right now the combat sports, which I have defined as martial arts, one-on-one combat sports that are in the Olympics. So there's 6 of them right now: karate, boxing, taekwondo, wrestling, judo, and fencing. Believe it or not, fencing is considered a combat sport. So basically what I want to do is I want to give this KFit test battery to all these sports. But first, what I need to do is find out what it takes physiologically using the heart rate data and such to do those sports. So that's kind of what's coming down in my pipeline. I'm really excited about it. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it a little bit on here. Just a little shout out here too. I want to shout out a couple of people that I train, a couple boxers, and it's on my mind. Cynthia Johnson had her first boxing amateur fight there a few weeks ago before she took off to Bali, and she won via TKO. It was kind of funny. I told Cynthia before the fight, I said, not right before the fight because it would be terrible coaching, but like weeks before, I told her, chances are in this fight, first fight, boxing fight for both of you, amateur boxing fight, chances are you're not going to knock each other out. Like there's not going to be a knockout. It's probably going to go to scorecards, so you just got to win 2 out of the 3 rounds. That was kind of our game plan. Well, Cynthia is such an all-star. She worked so hard. She knocked her out. She knocked a bitch out. It was a technical knockout, but we'll still take it. TKO in the second round, and Cynthia won her first amateur match. Shout out to Cynthia. I also wanted to give a shout out to Aiden that I train. Aiden trained super hard for a bronze gloves fight that he had that was going to be 4 rounds. So most boxing matches are 3-minute rounds. A championship match is 5 3-minute rounds, but you can't get a championship fight, a 5-minute fight, without already having a 4-minute fight. So that's kind of the time in between. And this was going to be Aiden's 4-minute fight at the bronze gloves. So he was ready to kind of knock on the door there for being a title contender. But unfortunately, and again, this is amateur sport, and kind of especially amateur boxing, Aiden's opponent had to back out like a week before the fight. So Aiden had been training so hard, super pumped on this contender fight coming up, and I'm not sure what happened to the other opponent, but he pulled out of the fight kind of last minute, and Aiden had nobody to fight. It's a crappy situation for amateur sports. That happens, but unfortunately that happened. But I still want to give a shout out to Aiden for training so hard, being ready, and he's still knocking on the doors there for a championship title shot in the bronze glove. So shout out to Aiden. All right, that's all the shout outs that I got for you guys. I just wanted to get those 2 out of the way there. So again, guys, thanks for tuning into the KFit Show. This was on goals and accountability and a little bit of everything else, I guess, talking about what you can do to help yourself perform. Keep an eye on KFit Conditioning. Things are coming out. I got some merchandise coming out. I'll be doing some t-shirt sales, and all the proceeds from the t-shirt sales are going to be going to amateur sports. We're going to talk amateur sport athletes. We're going to talk about that in a sec. Not in a sec. We're not going to talk about it in a sec. This episode is over, but we're going to talk about it later, some other episode. Keep tuning in. Okay, so lots of stuff coming from KFit Conditioning. These episodes come out every Wednesday morning, and then I got lots of stuff coming out all between, articles, guest articles. Mateus Mistura put out a nutritionist article the other day. Actually, it was last week. Check that out. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to the KFit Show and all the things that KFit and I, which is me, does. I appreciate it. Keep tuning in. If there's anything you guys want to talk about or you want to hear on the KFit Show, let me know. This structure of this podcast is still kind of taking shape, still kind of taking form. So help be a part of that, because I think we're onto something big. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Tune in next week on the KFit Show. I'm Kalan Anglos. Find me at Kalan Anglos on all the social media, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, guys. Have a good one.